listening to the Nutmegged Arena by the Nutmeg Assist.
Hello and welcome to this week's TNA Podcast with me, myself, Chris, and my co-host Rithwik, back after our 3-week break. How's it going, Rithwik?
All good, Chris. All good. I mean, it kind of feels like a long time since we spoke about Premier League or the European football in general. So glad to be back after us, short spells and the silence.
Feeling refreshed?
Yeah, absolutely. The international break kind of, gave a breathing space for us. Now we are on to the Christmas schedule, which is going to be very tight and action-packed as well.
Great. Well, as an Everton fan, I very much enjoyed the break. I completely zoned out from football, didn't follow any of it until this week. So plenty of stuff to get our teeth stuck into. First one being Pep Guardiola's contract extension.
Right.
I just want to say I think it's great to see an elite manager stay in longer than the 3 years than what is normally thrown at him and Jose Mourinho, Carlo Ancelotti, managers like that. As a Liverpool fan, are you happy to hear that?
To be honest, if you ask or if you put it like that, no, because you have more competition. It's not going to be a freeway for us next 2 years or even after that. But I mean, you look at it from a league perspective, of an opponent. I mean, be it any club, not just Liverpool. Even if you are an Everton fan, even if you are an Arsenal fan, even if you are a Manchester United fan, it's bad news because Guardiola is arguably one of the best out there ever to have managed in the beautiful game, and him signing an extension is bad news for others. But in terms of the overall perspective, or in terms of preserving the beauty of the league, preserving the quality of the league, I think it's really good for the Premier League, and it's a pretty tricky one, I would say, because normally Guardiola doesn't stay too long at a single club. I mean, from what we've seen so far, even at Bayern, even at Barcelona, I mean, it's been 4 years, if I'm not wrong. Here, he's now stayed 4 years plus 2 more. So this is probably going to be his longest spell at a single club. And he's not won the Champions League so far. He's won the Premier League twice in breathtaking fashion. Oh, you still have a lot to come from Guardiola. But the way things are going this season, probably, I don't know, it's probably a transition period for him. Yesterday's result against Spurs wasn't good news. What do you think, Chris?
Like I said, I think it's great news for the Premier League. I think it's great news to see what he can actually do if he stays beyond that sort of 4 year period that you've mentioned. And it'll be intriguing. I don't think there's any guarantees that it will be a success at this stage, and I'm just intrigued, and I'm quite surprised, if I'm honest. Do you think, Rithwik, that I think given Man City's performance over the last year, I think it's obvious that there is changes that needed. How big of a rebuild do you think is needed, and how big of a rebuild do you think will actually happen?
I mean, going by what's happened in the last 4 years under Guardiola, it's been, every summer you've seen him adding players, adding defenders especially. He spent enormous amount on defenders, fullbacks, centre-backs. I mean, you look at Man City's defense, I think it's kind of okay now. It's kind of stable. I mean, probably not, but in terms of personnel, Ruben Diaz, Aymeric Laporte, centre-backs fine. Joao Cancelo, Kyle Walker, still fine. I mean, they probably still need a left back. Cancelo's not traditionally a left back, and he doesn't actually play as a left back, although it seems as though on paper. But probably they might need one more recruitment there, and people might think I'm silly because he spent enormous amount there, but they've not kind of, made that area stable. Left back Benjamin Mendes kind of forever in and out of the squad. But for me, the most crucial area or part of the pitch where they need recruitment is attack, especially a striker. They need a striker. I mean, Sergio Aguero is aging, and I don't think he's going to stay at City for more than a year or two from now on. I probably think, it would probably surprise me if Sergio Aguero leaves next summer, but I think the summer after that, it's going to be 100% sure, in my opinion. And is Gabriel Jesus fit to replace Aguero? I mean, obviously, you have two sides of the coin. You might see some people say yes, some people might say no. I am also pretty confused. I'm also somewhere in between that, because Jesus has very much impressed me with his movement, with the way he receives the ball, with the way he makes those runs. But his finishing at times has been questionable. I mean, this season, I don't think there's a huge sample space, but last season, he had an expected goals of around 21 in the Premier League alone, and he scored, 14 goals, if I'm not wrong. And that's massive underperformance. I mean, he's got some really good chances, but he sometimes fails to convert that, which I think is something that you cannot have if you're playing for City. And that's something that you can see this season from City as well. They scored less goals than Crystal Palace, if I'm not wrong, this season. And that's horrific. That is horrific. So that is an area which I think they need to improve. They need to strengthen. They need to get a really good striker. I know they've been linked with various names, including Leo Messi. I don't know if Leo Messi is the solution for their goal scoring situation, but they need a striker to replace Aguero. They need someone probably who can actually push Gabriel Jesus, because I'm still not 100% convinced with Jesus.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's understandable. I mean, the way I see Manchester City at the moment is their game is fading because they're not as good in possession as what they once were. They're not as good as at pressing as what they once were, and that's making them a lot easier to beat than what they once were. So I think a rebuild is needed. I mean, the next question I'm going to ask you is a little bit difficult, but I just want your opinion on it. What do you think is the main reason behind Guardiola staying on or signing that new contract? Do you think
this?
I'll give you a little inkling to what my thinking behind the question is. Do you think it's the will and to win the Champions League, or do you think it's the fact that he's been pushed? He's been pushed from his perch by Jurgen Klopp.
I mean, this is a very tricky question, Chris, but I think it's neither of the two. I mean, you think that Guardiola might leave this summer and his options might most probably be Barcelona. Juventus, I think they look happy with Andrea Pirlo as of now. I don't think he wants to move to Barcelona at this point. I don't think he would want to move to Barcelona and manage there again. I think he said that before, if I'm not wrong. So you look at the prospects or you look at the possibilities that he has for a job. PSG, yeah, that could be possible. But again, I don't know if he sees PSG as an attractive option, because it's moreover PSG's dominance there in the league. Yes, he could win the Champions League there perhaps, but I think his next target might most probably be Italy. I do think that that's the case, and I think he's probably waiting for a couple of years before he might, or he thinks that the Juventus job might be available, or probably a job at Inter Milan could be possible. So I definitely think that's the case, but also City is an interesting project in itself. So, I mean, unlike the other managers that they've had in the past, the owners have been pretty much assuring of Pep Guardiola, and they really have given the full support to him. So he feels that support, in my opinion, and he still thinks that he has something left to give to the club, especially because of the performances in the Champions League. I think he still thinks that he has something to prove with City. I mean, he has amassed 100 points. He won the league with 98 points the year after, again, by a point, especially with Liverpool finishing in 97 points. Yeah. I mean, he's won 2 league titles in dominant fashion, in emphatic fashion. But in the Champions League, he's been actually thrashed by teams like Lyon, Monaco, and it's even Liverpool. So it's kind of, I think it's kind of a mix of both, where he feels that he has something to pay City back to because of all the support he's got. He's got enormous amount of money to spend as well. So in terms of the backing that the owners have given him, I think it's 100%. He's got everything that he needed at City. He still might get everything that he needs at City, and I think he still feels that he needs to pay them back by a decent performance in the Champions League, at least going on to a final. And also in terms of the things outside, the situation outside, the job market outside, I don't think he sees any job that might seem attractive to him. I mean, I said Italy, so yeah, I think it's a mix of both.
Interesting. It will be interesting. It'd be nice to see how an elite manager manages change as well, because I think that's a thing for me, a little bit of a bugbear in football for me, that all these elite managers around the world, I mean, it was something that was thrown at Jose Mourinho maybe before the Manchester United job, before the Tottenham job, something that's been thrown at Guardiola, that they stay for the 3 years because that's what they believe the amount of time that it takes for the players to stop listening to them is what's been put on record. And then when the squad needs reshaping and rebuilding, they don't actually hang around, they go, and you never actually see them manage change. So obviously you've touched on it there. There's a number of areas on the pitch that need changing for Manchester City. So it'll be good to see the process now, because I don't actually see them being successful this season. And I think last night's game sort of reiterated that for me. Now, you mentioned there about the striker issue. Do you feel that they now need to start considering another backup or more competition for Ederson?
Yeah, probably yes, because I mean, you look at both the goals that Spurs scored yesterday. I mean, it's not technically an error. I mean, both goals, I would say Ederson could have done better, but it's not technically errors, but bad decision making. I mean, you might have seen even in Pickford's case today, it's the complete exact opposite. So there's this guy called John Harrison on Twitter. He's a goalkeeper expert, and he explained it so well. So you see both the goals. Ederson came out of his line pretty fast, pretty quickly, and I mean, that completely gave Son, especially for the first goal. You see, Son had, he just needed to provide that a good finish, and the ball would go in. I mean, he could have probably waited a bit more and tried to make himself big. And also for the second goal, if Ederson doesn't rush out so fast, if he waits a little, the shot immediately becomes a bit more tough, because Lo Celso need to probably shoot with more power, and it has to be a more convincing shot for it to be a goal. So I think he made the job easier for Lo Celso for the second goal as well, by rushing out and helping Lo Celso with the finish. So it's not, I mean, obviously don't get me wrong, Ederson is a good keeper in terms of distribution. He is the best in the league in my opinion, even better than Alisson. So his passing is sometimes very pleasing to the eyes, and you can just sit there and watch Ederson, launch the ball upwards. But his decision making, his positioning, these two aspects has been pretty much under the red light, not just of late, from the very beginning. And I think, yes, he might need probably a strong backup who can kind of push him. You see that with David De Gea now. Dean Henderson wasn't sent out on loan. You see David De Gea's performance is improving to what it was last season or the season before. I mean, even in yesterday's game against West Brom, he made a really amazing save with his feet. And that is typical David De Gea. You see David De Gea improving now. So I think when you have competition, it's not something that I think it's probably universal. But when you have competition, you tend to do better. And I think City might have to look at a decent number 2, so that Ederson doesn't take his place for granted. Yeah, I 100% agree with you there.
Yeah. I mean, I personally think he was at fault for both goals. I think the first one the second one got highlighted, but I think the first one for me, there's absolutely no reason for him to come out that early. I think if you rewatch it, Cancelo's getting back to the point where if Ederson hadn't come out, there's no way Son was aware that Cancelo was coming back on the inside on goal side of him. He was on his weak side. He was still basically in the middle, or sort of on a straight angle to the keeper and the goal. There's no way he would have shot at that point. But because Ederson comes flying out of his goal, he actually makes it easier for Son to shoot. It doesn't actually, and it becomes easier because he doesn't come out on an angle. So I was just dismayed by it. But obviously a lot's been paid. You've mentioned there on Twitter, everything seems to be about the keeper, but I don't think we can take anything away from Tottenham and the format they're in at the moment, not only as a team but individually. It really looks like Jose Mourinho's got the bit between his teeth at the moment. Starting to play the odd mind games before the game as well with Guardiola. We haven't seen him play mind games throughout really his tenure as Tottenham boss. We've got a question from one of our patrons, Dieter, and let's get straight into it. Can Tottenham win the Premier League this year?
I would like to actually rephrase Dieter. Can they win? Probably yes, but are they title contenders? Yes, absolutely 100%. I mean, they have their Europa League fixtures, which is going to be sandwiched in between the Premier League games, midweek games. So that's going to be tough with all the traveling and stuff they have to do. But I think something that Jose Mourinho has done really well is to recruit rightly in the summer. He's basically seen that his starting 11 is very much capable of getting the job done. So he went on and added depth and also good quality depth. It's not like he's added subpar second choices. He's had added depth in terms of attack, Gareth Bale, Vinicius, and they have decent defensive signings as well. They made Sergio Reguilon has been amazing. He's an amazing signing that they made. Matt Doherty on the right side, another amazing signing. You have Ben Davies as cover at left back. You have Sergio Aurier covering right back, and Sergio Aurier's performance yesterday was really good against Man City. So you have quality now at Tottenham, even in the midfield, and Ndombele seems to be in the mood. And the midfield is really good now that Dele Alli has been completely phased out of the team. So that speaks volumes about the way Mourinho has changed Spurs. I mean, it's not just the way they play or the players that they have, it's the mentality now. You see them trying to fight for every battle. I saw the All or Nothing series, Amazon series, and every single time I see Mourinho saying that fight for a tackle, fight for the ball. And that's exactly the kind of spirit that they show right now. Even Harry Kane, at times he's a bit dirty with the fouls, but he wants to win every ball. He wants to win every ball, not just Harry Kane. You see every single Tottenham player. So they have, Mourinho has instilled the mentality in terms of performance as well. Even when they don't look very convincing, they kind of manage to sneak out points. Bar the game against West Ham, of course, but I do see them probably being title contenders. But one key thing, the next 4 fixtures, including this City game, they took 3 points from City. They have Arsenal, they have Chelsea. They play Chelsea next, if I'm not wrong. Then they have Arsenal, Palace, then Liverpool, I guess. I don't know if it's Palace, but 3 out of the next 4 fixtures are against top teams, Chelsea, Arsenal, and Liverpool. So it is going to be interesting to see how they perform in these games. If they manage to take 9 out of possible 12 from these 4 games, I think they might very well be along a shot for winning the title this season.
Yeah, but they play Palace before they play Liverpool, so it's Chelsea next week, and then it's Arsenal, and then it's Palace, and then I believe it's Liverpool. But obviously, like you've mentioned there, the Europa League games sandwiched in between them as well. So maybe a little bit too early to speak about Tottenham winning the league. But you just never know where the way this crazy season's going so far.
Exactly.
Believe it or not, my dad and my uncle actually support Tottenham. They're from Liverpool, but they support Tottenham, and they always have the whole lives. They always have. They have done the whole lives, and I think it's because their uncle, which would be my great uncle, actually is or lived in Tottenham outside the stadium back in the 50s. So I speak to my family quite a lot about Tottenham, and there was an interesting point that my uncle made, because he's not a great Jose Mourinho fan, if I'm honest, but he said that he's getting away with playing the type of football that he has done because the fans are not in the stadium to put pressure on the fact that they are being so defensive. Do you think, given that insight and given that opinion, do you actually think the fans being out of the stadium is actually playing into Mourinho's and Tottenham's hands?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very valid point there, Chris. I mean, yes, Mourinho has been pretty much defensive a lot of times. And yeah, like you said, I mean, if there were fans in the stadium, you would see a lot of rambling, a lot of noise. I mean, a lot of no sign of unhappiness as well. But I mean, yeah, I mean, it's a very valid point. It's a very valid point. I do think that has a role to play, but also on top of that, I do think there's a lot of change tactically as well. Not a lot of change, but it seems as though he's found a perfect 11, to be honest. I mean a perfect 11 in the sense he's got a mix of the right attackers and the right midfielders, and also a really good centre back pairing in Alderweireld and Davinson Sanchez. So it's how do you phrase it? I mean, it's a tricky question, but and definitely it definitely has a role to play as well, the lack of fans. But
Yeah,
I think it has more to do with Mourinho kind of finding the right players and getting the right, getting the best out of the right players as well.
yeah. I mean, one of the reasons why I think it is playing into his hands is when I got the impression when he was at Manchester United, he got caught between him playing the style and the system and the way that he knows and he can perfect as a manager and give great insights and coach the players how to do that. He got caught between that and then maybe giving the fans what they want and the media. I think when he was at Manchester United, it was the first time I've seen him rattled, sort of, I don't know what the right word is, maybe he sort of, previously he was never seen bothered by what people thought of him, Mourinho. When he was at Chelsea, when he was at Real Madrid, when he was at Inter Milan, when he was at Chelsea the first time, he didn't really care for what people's perception or the media's perception of him was. He played, you knew how he played, and it was everyone else's job to try and beat it. As we're at Man United, I got the impression he got caught between the two. He was sort of almost scared of failure at Manchester United, and I think the Tottenham job is perfect for him at the minute, given the way they sort of failed towards the end under Mauricio Pochettino. It's actually and the way that the football's gone since the pandemic. Like you've mentioned there, he is bought very well. I think he's got a settled 11. He seems to have changed his style tactically. Not changed his philosophy, but just changed it tactically. And like I said before, it does feel like he's got we're seeing a bit of the old Jose Mourinho coming to fruition here. And I think we need to keep our eye on Tottenham. I think especially Liverpool, but I think they're in the running. I really do think they're in the running.
Yeah, I mean, just to add to that, finally, one more point to add to that, Chris. And I do think this, again, is a big factor why they've been doing so well. I mean, the pressure that comes with a Tottenham job isn't too high.
Yeah.
When you compare it with what you have at a place like Manchester United or Chelsea. And the media attention as well, it's not that high. So the pressure from the media or the pressure overall, it's comparatively less. And it's also evident that the relationship that he has with Daniel Levy, is pretty strong. So I think these two are again very key factors on why his team. I mean, he's being able to express more of himself. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I think I think that's a perfect point that you've raised. Tottenham haven't really got a history of winning league titles, so therefore, yeah, the pressure is just completely different, and that's not knocking Tottenham as a club. I'm sure, or we're not trying to say that they're a small club or they've got a small mentality, but I think the point that you've raised about Daniel Levy is a two-way thing there. Levy probably knows that he's never going to get a bigger manager than Mourinho in charge of Tottenham whilst he's in charge. So I think he'll be a lot more patient with him. And the fact that, yeah, he can go about his business without the media pressure of expecting to win the league, like he had at Chelsea, Manchester United. So, yeah, that's a very good point that you've raised. I just want to touch on one more topic before we end this week's show or we end this week's Premier League discussion. Do you think the relegation battle is set now with the teams that are down the bottom? Do you think that's it now? Them bottom 5 teams. The reason I ask is that I was having a look at the Premier League table yesterday after yesterday's results, especially given how important that win was for Brighton. And there seems to be a little bit of a gap developing now between those bottom 5 teams. Do you think that's it now? Considering that we're in November, do you think that's it now? Those 5 teams are going towards the end of the season.
I mean, football's crazy, so I wouldn't call it done as of now. But from what I've seen so far this season, I would pick 4 teams, and I think 3 of them are definitely going to go down. Fulham, West Brom, Burnley, and Sheffield United, the 4 bottom teams as we speak. And I mean, Brighton's a curious case there because actually they've not been so poor defensively, although they've conceded a lot. I mean, the way they've been quite solid, but I mean, they've been pretty unlucky as well. So I think they'll comfortably be safe later on. But Fulham doesn't look convincing to me. West Brom doesn't seem to get results their way, but they might probably survive. Sean Dyche this season, I don't know, it's completely fell apart for him. But Sheffield United for me, Chris Wilder, I mean, last season was amazing, super amazing, but this season they've had a lot of injuries. They missed their key players like Ollie Norwood, and they don't seem to be. I mean, what word would you actually put it? They don't seem to be, convincing. Perhaps.
Yeah.
It's not that the overall performances are bad. They had a decent showing against Liverpool for periods of the game. They had a decent performance against Man City as well. It wasn't too bad. Even against Chelsea, there were periods where they looked decent, but they don't have someone who was finishing those chances pretty well. They don't have someone who is creating stuff, and there's a lot going on at Sheffield United right now. John Lundstrom said he won't sign an extension, so that's again a big blow for them. And there's a lot of things going on at that club right now, and not the right things as well. I mean, in terms of morale also, I think they're completely down. They have 1 point out of 9 games. 1 point out of 9 games, and they scored just 4 goals. And for Burnley, you look at Burnley, they scored just 3 goals. That's even worse. And I don't know what's happened to Sean Dyche. I mean, when I've seen him, I've seen Burnley's games 2 to 3 times, and I've had a lot of people asking me, why Burnley? Why Burnley? Do you want to? I mean, I've just said that I kind of like to watch Burnley as well at times because they're completely different, but it's interesting to see how they play at times. But it's not that they haven't created chances. They have few half chances and stuff like that, but they don't seem to be taking them pretty well. And defensively, they don't look solid at all. So I think Sheffield United and Burnley might go down, Fulham as well. And West Brom, they played well. It's not that, they've again been a case where they've been pretty unlucky most of the time. Even against Manchester United yesterday, they had a VAR controversy, but although probably it was fair, I don't know. But even against Tottenham, they defended very well. And one small mistake at the end was what gave Tottenham or Harry Kane that goal. One lapse of concentration, one sudden moment of bad judgment by the keeper. So it's not like West Brom have been awful. They've been good. Even against Chelsea, you saw the same. So I don't think it's completely decided yet, because we have a long way to go again in this season, and injuries are piling up, not just for one team, every single team. As a Liverpool fan, I am furious right now. I hope we see the 5 subs rule soon, but that's a completely different topic. I don't want to jump into that right now. It's a long season, so it's too early to call. But for me, I think Fulham, Burnley and Sheffield United, especially Sheffield United and Burnley, they seem to be in huge trouble. And I think those two are probably the 2 favourites to go down this season.
Yeah, I mean, Sheffield United are getting beat by West Ham as we speak. They're getting beat 1-0, so I'm not sure if that's full time there yet, but it's certainly coming towards the end of the game. Yeah, I just think those 4 teams now, it's 3. I think it's too early to predict what 3, because all 4 have been equally as bad as each other. Sheffield United just look like Chris Wilder actually maximised every single ounce of limited ability that he had in those players last year, and I think that's just the game turnaround this season is going against them. Burnley, I have a feeling, will get out of it, but will still be down there, if you know what I mean. I don't think they'll actually go down. Fulham and West Brom, you just don't know it seems to be like in a competition at the moment to see who can lose as many games as the other. But yeah, it will be interesting. To see how that develops throughout the season anyway, and if anyone else actually gets dragged in. But I very much doubt it.
Same here.
But that brings an end to this week's Premier League discussion. I just think it's great to have Premier League football back, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah, none of this international football now. Let's give it a rest to the European Championships. And it's been great speaking to yourself. Thank you to our Patreon Dieter for asking the question that he did, and we'll speak again soon.
Yep. Bye everyone.